Hi, thanks a lot for watching Being a Better Ally. What I wanted to do was provide a supplemental video with a little bit more information as well as some handouts that you can actually customize for your own organization or office space. Now, as we discussed in the video, what I think is particularly important about being a better ally is one, checking your judgments and assumptions, listening, but also listening with genuine curiosity. By listening with a genuine sense of curiosity, you're able to connect with one another. By connecting with one another, you can generously share with one another your authentic self. It takes a lot of strength to be this vulnerable, but providing a space for someone else to do this allows you to provide a space for you to do this. And that ultimately is what being a better ally means. Now, before we get too deep into this conversation, I first wanted to thank Rick Goodman, as well as Advantage CE, as in Continuing Education Seminars.com, for helping this process be so easy to do. That goes with the GoToWebinar as well. It's been very easy to work with and easy to record, and I really appreciate that. If you're interested in partaking in Human Resources Certificate Institute, HRCI, to receive CEUs for this particular activity, please use Rick and his team. They're happy to help you at AdvantageCESeminars.com. Rick's also a great trainer and speaker himself. If you have any questions, feel free to give him a call at 888-267-6097. Thanks so much for that. I really appreciate it. And I'm happy to be able to provide those HRCI credits. Now, if you have any additional questions or anything for me, please feel free at any time to give me a text. My texting number is 202-670-4262. 202-670-4262. You can also drop me an email at engage@goodenoughnow.com. I'm happy to answer any questions or comments you may have or point you in the right direction of some additional resources. Some of you want even more stuff, and that's great. So go to Kiwi Live, kiwi like the fruit, live like not dead, kiwilive.com. It'll ask you for a keyword. Type in my last name, Pettitt, Pettitt. That'll give you some handouts and links and videos and things like that as well. Now, as we were discussing in this particular video, we're talking about being a better ally broadly. What I think is particularly important to understand, and I mentioned it before as well, is that sometimes you're in a situation where you feel like you're not qualified to help. And just remember that the person who's seeking your help or is opening up to you or sharing something with you, they've chosen you. Now, yes, it is true. They may have chosen poorly. I know, it's happened to me too. But even if you think that they are choosing poorly, what's important to remember is that in their life, you're one of the best people they have. Somebody's done an inventory of their life, and they've chosen you to be the person to reach out to. So even if you may somehow feel that you're underqualified, that's okay. You could be underqualified, but you can still listen and make referrals. And to me, that's the definition of really being an ally. So the handout that I provided for you is called the Ally Path. And what this particular worksheet does is it really lists from all kinds of conversations, spaces, and interactions, different things that you can do and things that you probably shouldn't do. So I just want to go through some of those with you. Let's start off with the obvious one of interrupting offensive jokes. Now, I know for some people, that's actually hard to do depending on who is telling the joke. Sometimes I laugh at offensive jokes, and then later on, I'm like, ooh, I think that was offensive. That was funny, and it was offensive. As a former stand-up comedian, I think that it's particularly important to understand that humor is a great tool of breaking down systems of oppression, but it's also a great tool of really affirming stereotypes. It can do both. My favorite way to interrupt an offensive joke so that you can really start kind of a dialogue, but it doesn't like ruin the party or the needle scratch off the record, is just to say, I don't understand, I don't get it. And then the person who tells the joke has to explain what the stereotype is and what the joke is doing. It allows for some conversation. I think it's also important to note if you're retelling offensive jokes. Now, you could also think it's important that when someone's telling a joke or telling a story or introducing themselves, like, you have the ability to learn. You may not even know a joke is offensive, right? Or someone else may not know a joke is offensive, and by opening that conversation up, you're actually creating a learning moment for yourself and or others. Being able to speak up for the voices that may not be present, sometimes even just pointing out, like, I'm noticing that there's none of these people here, and we're actually talking about these people. Maybe we need to recruit some voices for that. Or cancel this meeting until certain people are able to attend and be part of a conversation. But speaking for the voices that aren't there, but you really need to also be speaking with those people. So you're not speaking for them and then silencing them. You're just recognizing the voices aren't at the table. Educating yourself and others. It's important to do this not as some kind of like judgmental ninja Jedi, but being open to learning yourself. Like, hey, I just learned this. For an example, I sometimes have used the idiom about being on the bottom of the totem pole. Someone explained to me that actually the way totem poles work is the symbolism that's on the entire pole. What's at the top of it is just as important as what's on the bottom of it, because the people who are building totem poles may respect gods that are in the sky as much as gods that are of the earth. So bottom of the totem pole doesn't make any sense. I didn't know that. What a great thing to learn, right? Being open to learning. So I no longer say bottom of the totem pole. I might say like last in the pecking order, or more specifically, I might just say last. That's important. Attend a rally. Go to some place that you don't know. A friend of mine who identifies as a conservative libertarian, one of the things that we do with each other is we recommend books for each other. So I read his books, he reads my Pinko Commie liberal books, and then we have really great conversations. What's really happened is it's helped me be able to have better conversations across difference, because I can say like, oh, I read Milton Friedman too. This is what I took from it. They're not expecting that. So then we can actually have a conversation. So I educated myself. I go to different rallies or speakers or watch different programs on TV than my usual programs so that I have a wide variety of perspectives. Researching different candidates in elections who are running either local jurisdictions, statewide, or federal. It's always important to know kind of who's running and the importance of being able to vote, assuming that you're able to. There's a lot of people who cannot vote. Reading up on different social justice issues, really understanding what the different sides of things are. For me, I try to remember that they, whoever they are, they're doing the best they can, and they really do believe they're right. So instead of just saying like they're crazy, which by the way is also a microaggression because some people really do have mental health issues. So instead of questioning someone's mental stability, maybe I need to open up to find out what it is they're so right about. I think that's particularly important. I have had a lot of conversations regarding the presidential elections. And when Obama got elected the second time, I know a lot of people who were just absolutely terrified it was going to be the end of the world. And what I think is funny is instead of empathizing with that, us liberal folks, we didn't empathize with those folks largely because we were really happy that Obama got elected a second term. But the reality is that the president before, when George Bush became president again, I know I was terrified and it was going to be the end of the world. So I've actually felt like them now. So if I felt like them now, I have some degree of understanding. It might not be right, might not be rational, but I at least can have a space of empathy. If we keep going, like reading different books, we talked about that. We also need to be paying attention to our own experiences. We don't always do things perfectly. So sometimes we like, oh, I really am horrible. And then we just try to avoid the situation in the future. But we already have the skill set. I think about it like whenever we're arguing with a sibling or a friend, or even better, when we break up with someone or we're in the middle of an argument. My breakups have always gone so much better like 2 or 3 days later. You know what I mean? I've replayed the whole situation in my head and I've rewritten the script and I should have said this and I should have said this and this would have gotten them. Well, it's the same way whenever you do something that you make a mistake. Pay attention to what you did, think about it, and then a couple of days later you might have a little bit more clarity on what would be better to do next time if afforded a next time. Interact and find support with other allies who are working through the same things that you are. That's important. We're not alone. We're not doing this by ourselves. For me personally, it's really important to remember that, because there are days where I just can't, and I know that somebody else can. And then what I do is I clock back in, because the day I clock back in, somebody else gets to take a day off. Voting for change that aligns with your politics, that's important. Don't assume to completely know someone else's experience. I said this earlier, but I think sometimes I like the phrase of just because you are one doesn't mean you get it. A lot of times, if you are a member of some kind of subordinated or marginalized group, you assume you know everybody's things. You know everybody's lived experiences, and people are really complicated. So make sure you leave kind of space for that. Playing in empathy versus sympathy is important. We talk about judgments and assumptions. We all make judgments and assumptions for very, very important reasons, largely to feel safe and prepared. The key thing is to print those judgments out, triple space with extra wide margins, and actively seek edits so that our draft can become better and better and better and more accurate about the person or thing that we're making the judgments and assumptions about in the first place. Not only is this keeping an open mind, but you're actually intentionally seeking edits. That's automatically going to lead to more genuine curiosity and a generous exchange of each other's authentic self. Don't assume you know another person's experience until you walk in their shoes. Even then, try to show empathy. I think that's an important thing to remember as well. Go to protests or march in something you believe in. I think it's also important, attend a protest or a march with something that you don't believe in, and try and listen and understand some point or perspective of where they're coming from as well. Understanding your own privileges. One of the things I think is really interesting when we talk about being an ally and the dynamics of power and privilege is we kind of think of it like a teeter-totter. Like if I'm privileged in this area, I have to give that up. But what we're trying to do is lift other people, not decrease ourselves. Paying attention to power and privilege is really key to do that. There's a lot of things that are on this list, and some of them are really, really specific. Some of them are a little bit more general, but it's just a good starting place, and it's certainly a good starting place for a conversation. When we talk about understanding other people's privileges, it's also understanding that they may not be aware of them at that particular time, but you can do that in your own processing of a situation. This isn't about showing pity on anyone. It's really about listening and supporting and working together with other allies. Joining other agents to further understand collective power and privilege is important, because you may be coming from here and they're coming from here, and until this happens, we're not really going to make a difference. Being able to work together, even though we have different issues, or like I say, we're wearing different t-shirts, is important, because typically all systems of oppression are directly linked together. And until we actually work together, we're not really going to make a difference. Seek to understand all the different forms of oppression, those that you benefit from, as well as those that may silence you. Let your actions speak louder than words. That's important in how you show up or don't show up. Recognize those patterns in your behaviors and your relationships, and then take responsibility for those patterns. Change the ones you want to and keep the ones that you don't. Notice numerous intersections between different forms of oppression. We talked a little bit about that. Highlight the commonalities between various target groups. So different groups actually do have something in common. And what would that be? And how does that work together? And how are they connected? And am I a part of that in any way, or am I not a part of that in any way? It's interesting to pay attention in a great conversation. Believe that there's always a possibility for an alliance. That's a key thing to understand, is that you may have to switch topics, but chances are there's something you can collaborate or contribute with. Keep the faith and hope alive. Don't buy into stereotypes. Respond with acts of kindness. Don't expect external rewards for your work as an ally. Feel good and be proud about the work that you do. Don't need recognition or trophies or parades. You're doing the work because it's the right thing to do. If you find yourself needing certificates or accolades, you're probably doing it out of ego. The reality is we're probably not going to solve any of these problems in our own lifetimes, but we should be doing the work because it's the right thing to do. Walk your talk. Know there are different ways of doing and seeing everything. I like to call it differently right. Be comfortable with criticism and feedback. Try to acknowledge your own prejudices and baggage. Challenge the norm. Even if it's good, it can always get better. Use examples that don't exclude a particular group's experience. Don't get stuck feeling guilty for the oppression of the past. It's not necessarily about the past. It's about right now and where we're going. But also don't forget that the past has led to where we currently are. Take ownership in your own conscious or unconscious participation in oppression. Accept the others may stereotype you. I'm assuming you can hear my dog, the male's here. It's very exciting. That's kind of what I mean too, right? Is that I think sometimes we get in this mode of being really, really, really serious all the time. And what I think is important is that we're all complicated and we all have really complicated lives. And this is a moment of where we can share that. So I'm not going to lie, in a moment, as soon as Zoe started barking, I was like, I'm making a video. They're supposed to be listening to me. But the truth is that I own dogs and I don't like the word own. Maybe we should reflect on that. I'm lucky enough to have dogs in my life that protect me from postal workers. That is a true story. She's doing a great job. Now, you can also demonstrate your ally role through your actions rather than trying to convince others through your words. So I like to think that some of us have the privilege of access to education. So we use our knowledge of language or words as weapons for other people. That's not opening conversations, but by actually doing things, I'm role modeling it for other people that it's safe to have conversations with me. Believe that everything is a never-ending process. This work will never get finished, may never get finished, certainly not in my lifetime. Do it anyway. Let your voice be heard. There are times where I am speaking such a truthful statement that I will hear my voice tremble. That just means it's even truer. And if I don't say it, I can't know that someone else will. Those of us like me who talk too much, it's also important to remember to kind of step back, give someone else a chance to take up the opportunity to, with a trembly voice, say something. 9 times out of 10, they're going to say what you want to say, and then all the voices get to participate in the space. Never speak for an entire group's experience or try to represent an entire group. Don't expect someone else to speak up on your behalf. I think that's a really important piece. Also, don't tokenize one person as representative of an entire group. Remember to speak only from your own experience. I like to call that speak your truth with care. Support people in the manner they want to be supported. This is the difference between the platinum and the golden rule. The example I like to use here is when my partner and I first got sick. We've been married for 10 years, and when we first got sick, my partner got sick, and so I left him alone for a very, very, very long period of time. And after a long time, he was like, "Why are you not talking to me? Why are you not interacting with me?" I had no idea that he needed those kind of things. A couple of weeks later, I caught the bug. I got sick. He woke me up about every hour to check on me, take my temperature, move the washcloth on my forehead. And I was like, get out of here. I will wake up in a couple of days and I will be fine. And what happened was that we were treating the other person as we like to be treated when we are sick. And what we really need to do is treat the person how they wish to be treated. So now when my partner gets sick, I set a little Google reminder to go check on him every hour because that's what he likes. And when I am sick, he leaves me alone for days and occasionally slips a sandwich into the room. It's perfect. That is the platinum rule. Don't assume to know what support somebody wants or what's best for them until they tell you. Or you can ask questions and offer up resources and options and see what they pick. Recognize that no one form of oppression is more significant than the other. There is no hierarchy of oppression. Pain is pain, suffering is suffering. Make sure that you're inclusive of all people and the suffering that they're experiencing in their lived experiences. When we talk about pain and suffering, it's important to understand that fundamentally, that is the best place for a space of empathy. Except that none of us are experts in diversity. If you meet someone that says they are an expert in diversity, it's really important to understand that they're giving you a flag. They probably haven't done a lot of self-reflection. They probably haven't taken a lot of responsibility for their own power or privilege. And I advise, take that into consideration. You don't need to challenge them, and you certainly don't need to school them. But if you meet someone that knowingly says, I am not an expert in this area, but I try really hard to understand, there's a degree of self-reflection there that I think is very, very, very much to be respected. Provide support and assistance to those in need when requested. When requested, don't assume neediness. Some people don't need help. Some people really do. Some people need help and they have no subordinated or marginalized identities. Sometimes those people are also very needy. It's all about personality and what we need from other humans and what we're willing to accept from other humans. Each person is different. Know that your work is never done. Go out on a limb. Why not? If it scares you, give it a whirl. If it's threatening to you, be safe. There's a difference. Do the best you can with what you got some of the time. That is my personal motto. It's the motto that I give to as many people as I possibly can. And I believe deeply that that's the motto that will open up more and more conversations amongst people of similar opinion, similar identity, similar lived experience, as well as vastly different. I really appreciate you and your time and being here. As you know, Even Better Diversity Training is made up of 4 different videos. If you haven't yet, I highly recommend you take advantage of the first video, Inclusion Beyond the Law. The second one is about being an LGBT ally. The third one is about facing trans, education, advocacy, and empowerment. Then I think this one, hopefully you have enjoyed, is a broader scope on being an ally. Again, if you need anything from me, you're welcome to text message 202-670-4262. 202-670-4262 is my texting number. Drop me an email at engage@goodenoughnow, we all are, goodenoughnow.com, and go to kiwilive.com. It'll ask you for a keyword. Type in Pettitt. Pettitt. Thank you very much for enjoying Even Better Diversity Training. Again, if you are interested in the HRCI credits, please feel free to visit AdvantageCEseminars.com. Give Rick Goodman and his team a call at 1-888-267-6097. This full course is worth up to 6 CEUs. I really appreciate it, and I'm really excited to be able to offer it to you. Also, if you're interested in more trainings for other companies or friends or referrals, or you need more copies specifically within your organization, please feel free to drop me a call. I'm happy to do bulk orders and make this as available to you as easily and accessible as possible. Otherwise, have a great night, and I'll try and include a picture of Zoe. Bye.